I'm Melanie Johnson, along with my co-host Jenn Foster. We are both 13-time best-selling authors. We've published over 2,500 books and made all of our authors #1 bestsellers. We own Elite Online Publishing. If you want to become a best-selling author, look us up at eliteonlinepublishing.com. Now, welcome to the podcast that shares secrets from top industry experts that show you how to get lasting success and results. This is the Elite Expert Insider Podcast. Hey, welcome. This is Melanie Johnson for another great podcast. And I have my business partner, Jenn Foster from Elite Online Publishing here with me. How are you doing today, Jenn?
Doing great. It's great to be on Elite Expert Insider Podcast today.
It sure is. So if you've ever thought about being a speaker or learning how to communicate more effectively, you are in the right place today. But first, before we get to that, I want to remind you to subscribe to our podcast and share it with your friends, because we're always here to inspire you, motivate you, and educate you and make your life better. And we're going to do that today with our special guest, Beth Noymer Levine. She works with athletes, Fortune 500 executives, and teaching them how to speak more effectively and really fine-tune their message. And let me tell you, all of us can use that, whether you're communicating with your kids, you're communicating with your spouse or a personal relationship, as well as speaking to other Fortune 500 companies. So stay with us. You are going to learn something that's going to make your life better and your relationships better and your business better today. Beth, thanks so much for coming and joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Melanie and Jenn. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So tell us, Beth, a little bit about yourself and how you came to write this book and to be this coach in this awesome world we live in today.
Thanks, Jenn. So my business is SmartMouth Communications, and it's 15 years old, but I had the idea for it probably 25 years ago. I started my career on Wall Street, actually, and I was one of the communications people prepping investment bankers, their corporate clients for media interviews and high stakes presentations. And I remember thinking back then that, wow, these are some really smart, successful people, and they cannot find their way out of a paper bag to a message or something impactful to say. And so I had this idea ruminating in my head for a long time during different phases of life, and then 15 years ago started SmartMouth Communications. And we do one-to-one speaker coaching, group presentation skills training, and media training, which used to be sort of the meat of do their own media through social platforms. And so we've developed kind of a personal branding session to replace media training. We still do some traditional media training, but the personal branding has become pretty important. But I usually introduce myself by saying that through SmartMouth Communications, I like to say that I save lives, one conference room and one boardroom at a time. I save the lives of speakers and presenters who need help organizing their thoughts and material into something meaningful and memorable. And I save the lives of their audience members who might otherwise die of boredom. So that's...
I'm going to steal that. We're going to say we save lives one book at a time.
And you do. Yeah.
So talk about the 5 principles of communications. Give us a breakdown of some of those.
I will. Thanks, Melanie. So in my book, Jock Talk, 5 Communication Principles for Leaders as Exemplified by Legends of the Sports World, long subtitle.
Ooh, I like it.
There are 5 principles of good communication. The first is audience centricity. The second is transparency. The third is graciousness. The fourth is brevity. And the fifth is preparedness. And those 5 principles are discussed in the book. And in each of those chapters, we use stories from sports, professional sports, to highlight a good example of that principle and a not so good example of that principle. But they're all important. I would say that audience centricity, really focusing on your audience's needs and interests and putting those ahead of your own when you're speaking or presenting. That's one that really gets left out. People get invited to speak. They're the subject matter expert. And so they come with what's interesting to them. They don't really think about their audience first. Increasingly, I think that brevity is a lost art. And the more we are speaking and presenting online, I think brevity becomes really important lately. People have screen fatigue, and they came to their screen fatigue with attention span problems to begin with. And so the need to be brief is really important. But transparency is in high demand, as we know. Graciousness, or taking the high road, is important. And being prepared is as a way of showing respect for your audience.
Yeah, I love that you talk about screen fatigue, because I think a lot of people aren't realizing it's a thing, right?
It's a
and
thing.
and they're thinking like, oh, I should be able to, meet with 7 people in a day on Zoom or on whatever video conferencing.
It's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. And when I coach people on this specific challenge, making a presentation and having some impact over Zoom, they'll say to me, well, I can't be brief. I need to tell them all of this. And I'm like, do you really? Or can you send them a deck? Can you send them some kind of an attachment and just hit the main points, encourage some interaction, stimulate them somehow with your own questions or some video? It's that drive to make the presentation online like it would have been in person. Yeah. That's where people get caught up and get trapped.
Yeah, I think also, like, I'm noticing how your speech is very, like, you're communicating with us and your speech is very slow and relaxed. And I think, for me, I'm always in that like go mode. And so I forget, even on Zoom, like, I'm not in person with them, and I'm speaking like 100 miles an hour. And sometimes you have to step back and slow down.
That it's funny you mentioned that, Jen, because I do tell my clients when they need to be impactful and they need to have something happen, they have an ask to make of their audience, I encourage them to be energetic and that it should feel almost theatrical to them. Yeah. But they usually interpret it as, well, I've got to go fast. I've got to really talk fast. It's not about talking fast, but it's about having some energy in your voice and in your body, and really coming alive on the screen for your audience. But a lot of people interpret it as they need to just like hustle.
And yeah, I'm originally from Michigan, and I moved down here, was a newscaster up there, came down here, was a newscaster in Texas. And some of the first response I got was, she talks so fast.
That's funny. Yeah.
And I love the point that you say it should almost be theatrical. Like when you're a good storyteller gets slow when there's something more important, they get fast. So there's emotion, there's fast, there's slow, there's loud, there's soft. There's all.
The voice is one of your tools. Yeah, that's one of the tools you have. When I've coached a lot of tech executives and a lot of those tech companies have these big annual conventions where they invite in all their clients, and they're speaking in a room of 500 to 1,000, sometimes 2,000 people, and they're being projected on screens. And they're still tech people. They are some version of an engineer, and so they're not really extroverts or performers. And one of the things that I do with them is actually get them to act out their speech. So if they say they moved from New York to San Francisco, I have them move on the stage, so that they are animating their words, and it's a way to get them to be more theatrical. But it's that feeling of, of borderline theatrical. Like if the person who's speaking feels like, oh, this is almost too much, that's where I want them.
And all right, I'm going to throw out a weird question for you, because when you said like an engineer having to speak, what advice would you give Elon Musk?
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so there are certain people, and I put him in this category, who just are themselves. And I don't know that he would be coachable. And he's himself, he's sort of an enigma, he's just this sort of iconic figure. I would let him be himself.
That's good. I always feel like he's searching for the words, like he's having, to get it from his brain to come out here, it gets stuck somewhere in there.
I think there's probably a lot going on in that brain.
I do too.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about, your book and how it came about, and you have a course as well. So tell us a little bit about that.
So the book came out in 2015, and it's actually done very well. And I didn't expect this, but I had people read it and then call me from places like North Carolina and just all over the place. I got some interesting new client inquiries from that. We also have a mobile app called the SmartMouth Public Speaking Toolkit, which is in the iTunes Store and the Google Play Store. And the app is like a rescue package in your pocket. It takes you through a lot of how-to content where you get your head around how to think about a presentation, but then it has actual functionality, the speech builder. And you go to the speech builder and literally there are drop-down buttons that prompt you. You fill in the blanks and voila, you have either the outline for a presentation or the presentation itself. All you need to do, if you need visuals, is to add them later. So that has been a gem. That's about, I'm going to say 7 or 8 years old, the app. So it's been out a while, the SmartMouth Public Speaking Toolkit. And that's been a great seller. We also have online courses on udemy.com, opensesame.com, and go1.com. And those range from little micro courses on topics about like know your audience and openings or closings to presentations 101, which is the full course. It's long. Takes users about an hour. So those were quite a project, not unlike writing a book, but it gives us a more full suite of things to offer people who can't, if I can't make it into their conference room, it's a way to reach more people.
What would you say, someone starting from scratch, they want to do a presentation, what's the first thing they should do?
This is interesting. The first thing they need to do is identify what their goal is. So what is my desired outcome? What does a win look like? And a win may not be a victory. It may just be leaving the door open for further conversation or whatever. But knowing that objective is huge. And then diving into the audience. Really, what does the audience really care about? What are they really thinking about? What's really on their mind? Given that the topic is usually fixed, there may be something else on the audience's mind. And so somehow merging all of those self-interests, yours as the speakers, because you have a goal, the audience's needs and interests, merging those and finding a way to make points that will resonate and be meaningful to the audience.
Is the outcome, would you say, kind of like the call to action to sign up for their services, or is it maybe that they've learned something or prompts them to take action to do something in their career or take action with them, like I said, buying a service?
Yeah, the goal, so there are 2 types of presentations that we in the world tend to make. One is informative and one is persuasive. So in the persuasive one, there's an ask or a call to action.
Mhm.
In the informative one, it may be that you just want to tell the audience, and you want to state this goal up front. You just want to tell the audience, I'm going to give you a status update on project XYZ. And by the end, I hope you feel fully informed and are ready to take on the next section or step in project XYZ. So it's really spoon feeding to your audience what the end game of the presentation is, and not holding on to that and waiting till the very end when you've lost them. So it's for the beginning, so that people, if they check out mentally, which they will do, they at least know what's expected of them by the end. They know what the end game is.
I like that. Just telling them right up front what it's
Right.
going to be so that they know. And then when it comes, they're going to be like, oh yeah, she said that.
Well, that's right. This is why we're here. This is what we're shooting for. Exactly. Yeah.
It's kind of, what do they say? Tell them what to expect, give them what to expect, and then reiterate what they just learned. Tell them what they learned, keep them
yeah. So Melanie, that's the old, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them.
Yes.
So what I'm suggesting about articulating the goal is a level above that.
Okay.
Right. So you have, that's just about your content, but tell them why you're going to tell them what you're telling them. In other words, why are we all here? What are we shooting for? So it's kind of it supersedes that.
Yeah. The main goal. I like that. I like that. Well, tell us, Beth. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, tell people where they can go to find you, where they can get more information, where they can get all of your courses in one place.
So you can get all the information you need by going to SmartMouthCommunications.com. And on the website, we have an on-demand page, which takes you to all the online courses. There are references to the app and to our newsletter. And lately, we've got what we're calling a virtual training room, which we are delivering virtual training where you get tons of individualized feedback. And there's information on that as well.
Fabulous. Well, if you didn't learn something, then you're in trouble. You need to listen to this twice, because there was a lot of information in here. I love it. I love everything that you gave, the 5 tips of starting out, being transparent and being prepared, and gratuity. And I forgot one of them, but all of them were
Brevity.
Really great. So remember to subscribe to our podcast before we go. And if you're looking to create a book and become a best-selling author, contact us at eliteonlinepublishing.com and fill out our form. We'll see if you qualify to work with us and become a bestseller. And remember to share this podcast. And Beth, thanks so much for coming.
Thank you, Melanie and Jen. I appreciate it. It's fun to be with you today.
Have a great day.
Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.